everyone, and welcome to the 10th episode of the OpenStack and Beyond podcast. Tonight we'll be having a special guest, the Chief Operational Officer of the OpenStack Foundation, Mark Collier, along with a panel of excellent OpenStack Israel guests. This is Sharon Zitzman, your host for tonight, as Nati and Arthur are taking some time off with my co-host Ori Cohen.
Hey guys.
Hi. Today we'll actually be doing a recap of the OpenStack Summit in Austin, which was an exceptional summit with 7,800 plus attendees, and a little bit of a segue into the OpenStack Israel Day that's coming on June 2nd, kind of tie it all together, how the OpenStack Israel community has been getting even more involved in the OpenStack sphere, and some of the highlights from the event. So we have a really great episode. We have Tom Thirer from Mellanox joining us, along with Chen Leibovitch from LivePerson, who were actually spoken to during Mark's keynote on the second day of the summit, who brought a little taste from the OpenStack Israel community to the entire OpenStack Austin. So just to get the ball rolling, Mark, welcome. We're really excited, to have you joining the first ever, or at least as far as I can remember, in the 4 years that I've been involved, that we haven't had you come out to our event. Are you getting excited? Mark?
Yeah. Sorry, you were breaking up a little bit, but I think you were talking about the upcoming event.
Yeah, and getting you out to Israel, if I'm mistaken. This is the first time you're coming to the Israel event?
Yeah, it's actually the second time I came to the OpenStack Day Israel, I think 2 or possibly 3 years ago. Amazing experience, and I'm really looking forward to coming back here in just a few weeks. I guess only a couple of weeks maybe. It's coming up fast, but yeah, the summit in Austin was definitely a global event. We had people from over 60 countries come, and it was great to have Kobe talking about what LivePerson was doing. We heard from a lot of other big users, but it'll be great to see everybody in Israel here in just a few days.
I think we lost Sharon.
Okay, should I just do a quick highlight of the summit recap?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that? Thanks.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, we always see the summits as a global event. Obviously, we rotate them through various cities. It was really cool to have it back in Austin for me because I'm from Austin, and our very first OpenStack Summit was in Austin. And about 6 years ago, we had 75 people. So to go to over 7,800 less than 6 years later has been kind of crazy to be part of that, and just to see the growth of it. One of the things that launched at the summit was the Certified OpenStack Administrator exam, and this is really part of a big need we've seen in the community and the marketplace for people that really want to be able to hire up the talent required to be successful in cloud. And having that certification is a really important milestone. And we had over 100 people take the exam for the first time. We were able to do it, on site. It's available online, kind of on an ongoing basis, so you can take it from anywhere online. But we thought it was a good opportunity to go ahead and have the first people take the in person. We got a lot of good feedback from those initial people that were part of that. We also had the launch of Mataka just before the summit, with over 2,300 developers and over 300 organizations contributing. And of course, we heard from a lot of major users, in addition to LivePerson, which is the largest telecom in the world, China Mobile, which is the largest mobile carrier in the world, State Grid, which is the largest electric company in the world, and Volkswagen, the largest automaker in the world, all spoke about what they're doing with OpenStack. We also heard from a lot of small and medium businesses that are doing interesting things as well. So that's kind of what we try to put front and center at every summit is, put the users in charge, let them tell us what they're doing with OpenStack. And one of the things we found when we kind of dig into the patterns is that they're starting to look at ways to combine OpenStack with other open source technologies. So I talked a bit about this in my keynote in Austin, but we feel like there's kind of a emerging lamp stack, if you will, to use an analogy from the web era, where people are combining OpenStack with things like Kubernetes or Mesos, and we heard from Kobe at LivePerson about how they're running Kubernetes on OpenStack. We also got to see a really cool demo of some futuristic integration work that CoreOS is doing to run OpenStack on Kubernetes. So kind of looking at it from the other perspective. So containers continue to be interesting, and people looking at the right way to combine those types of open source technologies with OpenStack was a major theme. And with that, I guess I'll pause and take a breath and see what other questions you might have about the summit or what else is going on in OpenStack land.
That was awesome. Thanks, Mark. Actually, kind of continuing the topic of containers, so there are projects within OpenStack like Magnum. We saw some integrations with other clouds. For example, I think it was back in Vancouver, where we've seen a demo where we kind of seen like a hybrid model where both Google Cloud and OpenStack were kind of used jointly. So how do you see the role of OpenStack in a container-centric world? What role does it play, and what is the evolution we should be expecting?
Sure. I think the thing that's kind of helped me understand how all these technologies mesh is to really keep in mind that containers are fundamentally a building block that relates to applications and how applications are packaged with the various dependencies. And so that's always been a difficult part of taking an application from development all the way through to production is all those tricky different dependencies that every application has. And so containers are really at that application layer trying to solve that problem. And then the container orchestration engines like Kubernetes, for example, they're orchestrating those applications, those distributed applications that are containerized. And so when you think about applications, it's great that you can containerize them to solve kind of the headaches of dependencies and so forth with some standardized formats. It's great you can have tools to run applications that are distributed across a lot of different nodes. But at the end of the day, those applications still need to run on infrastructure, and that infrastructure, ideally is highly programmable. And that's what OpenStack is. It's the layer that allows you to turn pools of compute, storage, and networking into a programmable infrastructure layer. So infrastructure and apps are obviously closely related, but they are different things. And so in that sense, I think some people kind of conflate them, but really it makes a lot of sense that an application running on an infrastructure that's automated by OpenStack might be containerized, and there are different, depending on the layer you're doing that, there are different projects within OpenStack to help facilitate that integration, like Magnum, for example. And then the flip kind of example, which was the CoreOS demo, is if you think about OpenStack itself as an application, it's a series of Linux services, if you will. So there's Keystone and Nova and Swift and Glance and so forth. There's no reason you can't utilize application lifecycle management tools like a Kubernetes to help you with self-healing or upgrades and kind of spinning up and down and replacing those different services when they go down, or you want to rev it to a new version. So there's really kind of every layer of the stack an opportunity to within OpenStack powered clouds to take advantage of some of this cutting edge technology. And we actually see a lot of our users bringing containers into the enterprise more quickly because they already have OpenStack down as kind of that infrastructure layer. And that's certainly what Kobe at LivePerson talked about in his example.
Awesome. Actually, on that note, I'd love to loop Chen in from LivePerson to talk a little bit about their use case and what they call growing up with OpenStack. They've actually been using OpenStack since Folsom. Chen, remind me. Tell a little bit about what LivePerson is doing, a little bit about the evolution, kind of in case people missed the keynote moment, and how you've been migrating towards containers and Kubernetes. It's a really interesting story.
So as Kobe stated, we started off with OpenStack since the Diablo release, which was some kind of a POC mode where we eventually decided we're still not feel confident enough to use it in production, but next release right after ASICS was already fully in production with to start with some sort of a small footprint where we're using only our let's call it non-persistent services such as web servers, and later on in Folsom we really started feeling a lot more confident and putting our really main core business services on OpenStack. Since then, we're nearly 100% on OpenStack. Other services such as Hadoop or dedicated services are still on bare metal, but nearly 100% is on OpenStack. Since Folsom, we're upgrading the cloud. Not every release, but right now we're in the process of reaching Kilo and until the end of September, something around there. And about containers, right now we're in the process of migrating some microservices to Kubernetes, running on top of OpenStack, of course. What else? We feel really confident with OpenStack over the past few years and the upgrades, of course. That's pretty much it, I think.
Awesome. That's really great. It's exciting to hear about kind of the evolution and the development that you guys have been doing around OpenStack. Actually, this management revolution, he discussed Kubernetes, and what can I say? You mentioned Cloudify, and in that context, I would actually like to loop Urian in his Cloudify kind of hat. And what are your thoughts, kind of, on the container management on top of OpenStack, and where do you see it evolving to, and kind of our role in that, and other tools as well?
Yeah, I think it's it's kind of a bit of a confusing world. I mean, as Mark stated, you could actually apply the two use cases. You can kind of treat the container orchestration solutions as an application on top of OpenStack, but you can also do it the other way around. So there's a lot of flexibility here for how you want to do that. I think moving forward, we're going to see basically two types of solutions. The first one is going to be, and that's kind of Kubernetes and Docker Swarm and the likes, is going to be all container native. So for those new workloads, which are typically greenfield and use only containers, these solutions are going to be, I think, very popular. If you are going all in containers, there's no reason for you to use anything else. The other thing that we're seeing is that for large enterprises that do have a lot of legacy workloads, but are still kind of looking for making a move into containers, they will need solutions that can manage both kinds of workloads at the same time, even integrate them. For example, you may want to have the same application have a microservice deployed via Docker or Kubernetes, and then access some sort of legacy database which has to be installed on the VM or even on the metal. So if that's kind of the reality you're living with, you'll need solutions that can accommodate for that. So that's kind of the two main categories that I see around that.
Interesting. So I would actually I'd like to take this opportunity to loop kind of Tom from Mellanox into the loop. You also discussed, Mark, in that keynote, NFV as the primary use case for OpenStack. And so in that context, I know that Mellanox have been doing a lot of really interesting work around. So Tom, what are your thoughts on kind of the whole NFV play in the context of OpenStack, and where do you see Mellanox fitting into the whole networking sphere? And the things that you guys have been doing.
Yes, so definitely. So we've seen, NFV as one of the trends that increased the adoption of OpenStack. It's NFV. I joined the containers comments. Also, scientific research. We've seen, first time that we had a track on that at the OpenStack, and we've seen this with our customers for several years now, and we have such projects. And the requirements, I mean, of all these all these areas are kind of the same, or not same, but similar, not that, in terms of networking. If we're looking at NFV, when you put a virtual function on a VM, there is a requirement to actually have a very fast packet rate in the VM and outside of the VM. So the network plays a very significant role there. We see that today the CPUs of the servers are working very, very hard on networking tasks. So this virtualization effort is not able to push the required throughput, and it's very similar in the HPC, as people, so the use cases is that scientific organization, they want to offer their scientific resources to researchers. They want to do it in a cloud model, but still they want to get bare metal performance. So again, we need a very fast network, and we're doing a lot of, so we're doing two things. First of all, we're doing acceleration of the various protocols. We have the fastest packet rate for, a DPDK packet rate for NFV. We are accelerating overlay networks protocol. We are offering RDMA to access storage. And we're also, so we're accelerating the data plane. And we're also working a lot to integrate with OpenStack and integrating in the provisioning aspects, having plugins to Neutron, to Cinder, to Nova. So both of these directions.
Excellent. This week is actually the Metaswitch Forum, which is interesting to me in the context of kind of open source development around NFV and networking. Ori, since we're kind of in the open source NFV space as well, I'd like to hear a little bit about your thoughts, and then Mark's thoughts on the evolution kind of open source NFV and VNFs, and in the context of the entire open source ecosystem, OpenStack, etc., and the different projects that have arisen around this, the OpenOs and the OSMs, and so go for it.
Mark, do you want to start?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I think one of the things that we have found is that I think the needs of enterprises and telcos for NFV and HPC, as you mentioned, they're actually not that different. I think there was some concern, like last year, a few articles were written about how OpenStack is focusing on NFV, therefore they're not focusing on something else. And the reality is that all of these applications need to process, store, and move data, and the networking is kind of the final frontier in cloud. Not just virtualization, but all different layers in terms of control and automation, and trying to do it in an open and scalable way. It's a very, very difficult problem, and I think that Neutron is actually in a really good place right now, and which is very exciting, because a couple of years ago, a lot of people were frustrated with where Neutron was. I think it had such an ambitious early scope, that it just goes to show how complex this problem is to solve for, especially with different use cases. But what we've seen is the telcos have pushed the envelope really hard because they're trying to route millions of calls through the network. Just as a real world example, AT&T today, the largest telco in the world, they're routing their wireless phone calls, a lot of them through from their wireless network through an OpenStack cloud. And so quality of service and being able to have guaranteed performance and low latency and all these things, it's just another level of requirement that might be a nice to have for like an enterprise, but it's absolutely necessary in the telco world. So those benefits are flowing back to the other users, and certainly HPC is obviously all about high performance. So that's just one point I wanted to make. In terms of the other pieces of the stack, obviously there's a whole ecosystem like Mellanox and others that are working on the plugin side of the OpenStack sort of powered cloud, and OpenStack's always been designed to have plugins and not try to sort of do everything in the code base. It's really trying to be that integration engine in the middle that brings together the different technologies. But then above and beyond that, you have groups and sort of midstream distributions like OPNFV, the Etsy standards folks. There are a lot of different groups that are forming to try to define what some of the full stack looks like when you take OpenStack and add the other pieces you need to really do VNF at scale and try to manage network services. And what kind of clicked for me, because I didn't have a lot of telco background before kind of seeing them come in and get active in OpenStack, is that for them a network service is literally their entire business model, or a large chunk of it. They're selling access to the network and the ability to configure it into different products and services and charge for it. So those are all things again that become leveraged in an enterprise use case and other markets. So it's pretty exciting to see the way OpenStack as a community has really started to collaborate with other communities, other open source technologies, standards groups, because it's really nothing short of a complete rethink of how data centers work when you get to the network automation layer. So it's a massive scale problem, and it needs more than one community to get to the end goal.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I think your comment that enterprise users benefit from the NFV use case, I think it's also correct the other way around. So we're seeing a lot of companies we're engaged with, a lot of telecom companies and telecom vendors trying to implement kind of, I wouldn't say enterprise best practices, but like open source and DevOps best practices to the world of telecom. Kind of was very even unaware of these tools and practices before. So that's something that is also very interesting. I think also that NFV is becoming, I guess that's not news, but at least from our booth traffic, and unfortunately I wasn't there in Austin, but from looking at the leads and the people that went through our booth, I think more than half, and Sharon can correct me if I'm wrong, more than half of them were actually targeting NFV use cases. So that's kind of interesting in that regard. The other bit is about all those projects and foundations around OpenStack. There are a bunch of them, right? There's Open Source Mono, there's OPNFV, there's OpenO. There's Stacker within OpenStack, but what's very clear is that at the core of all these projects is OpenStack. They might contribute additional use cases, but a lot of them really deal with actually contributing back to OpenStack things that are relevant to NFV. And I think that goes a long way in saying how OpenStack is central to almost every NFV initiative out there.
Awesome. So I think this is like a good opportunity to kind of segue into the future of OpenStack, where it's going, the direction it's taking. And I'd actually like to start with our panelists, kind of the people who have been, developing on top of OpenStack and working with OpenStack. So, Chen, what are your thoughts on kind of where you think OpenStack should be putting its focus and looking forward, and kind of LivePerson's needs when working with OpenStack, and your vision moving forward with OpenStack?
At the moment, we're kind of focusing on mainly on the network. We're evaluating at the moment a few SDN solutions. Mainly, we're searching for more broad solutions than just network for the cloud, but for the entire network infrastructure. Of course, bare metal, which we're not still yet there. Ironic. What else?
What are you guys looking to do moving forward with OpenStack a little bit, kind of specifically in terms of in developing kind of LivePerson's?
What was that again? Sorry.
I'm just going to be, in a year with OpenStack and the things that you guys are looking to be able to achieve.
Looking forward, we're of course moving on with the upgrades, and we're about to close the gap. We're a little bit behind on the releases, and plans for next year, I think we're about to maybe start in a new region in our main data centers, which consists over 300 compute nodes at the moment. Hopefully, it will be. It will start with some sort of SDN solution. We still haven't decided which one. We're in the evaluation process. We're also starting using Swift right now, using SwiftStack. Big plans for services using object storage, also part of the roadmap. And as mentioned before, Kubernetes as well. Use case right now is a few small implementation running on top of VMs. Maybe later on, if it grows as we expect, maybe we'll consider a Magnum or bare metal. We have a lot to play around with and decide. That's about it.
Yeah, it's like you have an ambitious roadmap.
Yeah.
Sounds ambitious. Tom, I'd love to hear about what Mellanox are looking forward to in the upcoming releases in OpenStack, and what you guys are planning, what your vision is for kind of Mellanox's development on top of OpenStack, where you see it going.
Right. So as always, and we are always working, to do a better or enabling, right, OpenStack to benefit from the network, from the high performance available on the network. For example, one of the and also better integration. So one of the examples, for example, we're working on making the OpenStack scheduler to be aware to networking properties. We are now working to improve and accelerate OVS, which is a major thing that we foresee will provide major benefits and free CPU. We are working and this is a project we started and we've shown last year. That's another example. We've done the work together with Red Hat and Huawei to enable quality of service. This sort of things.
So Mark, tell us a little bit about the future plans for OpenStack, you know, where you see it evolving to, what the...
Sure. Well, I think that one of the great things that we're seeing now that there's a critical mass of OpenStack. Oh, sorry, you were cutting out a little bit. I think where we're seeing the critical mass of OpenStack clouds all over the world is the opportunity for people to come in that just want to use those clouds to build applications and do something with it to create value. And there's all kinds of interesting stuff happening in the research space. You know, we had a hackathon, the first application hackathon in Taiwan a few weeks ago, and the winner of that contest came and actually demoed what they'd worked on at the OpenStack Summit. So we expect to do many more of these application hackathons. The next one that's on the schedule is in Mexico, and we think there'll be quite a few more after that. So you know, a lot of that not only uncovers how people are using it, but some of the tools around that. So there's an application catalog that was launched about a year ago that has a lot of the tools you would expect. A lot of those are containerized in Docker and so forth. And those are all really focused on the end user experience. So, of course, there's a lot of user experience improvements that have happened in the last couple of releases for operators, making it easier to get a network and set it up. There's been a lot of progress in Mitaka, for example, with some of the defaults. So there's a lot of configuration options when you set up OpenStack, and really trying to reduce that down. And looking across projects, whether you're an end user or an operator, you don't really want to think of OpenStack as a whole collection of disparate parts. You want to be able to use it as one system. So, Mike Perez, who works for the OpenStack Foundation now, used to be the Sender PTL. He's providing a lot of leadership in the community to create more consistency between the projects. So when from an API perspective, if you're interacting with block storage and Sender and creating networks with Neutron and so forth, that those activities are really similar. So the learning curve to use OpenStack as an end user becomes a lot easier. And part of that is an OpenStack client, which is a piece that kind of sits in between all those running services and the command line client that you want to use to interact with them. So we went from a world where we had a different client for each project to one unified client, and we're starting to add broader support within OpenStack client for different projects. So some of those things they may not seem like big, huge features, but they're really kind of the necessary work to continue to make OpenStack easier to use. So when you're really trying to process, store, and move data, whether you're looking at self-driving cars or future smart cities or any of these other HPC type applications, they all have a similar technical need for programmable infrastructure, but a lot of times the barrier to getting the most out of that is how difficult it might be to use, some of the knowledge gap that you may have to understand how to use it. So education, applications, user experience, and just collaborating across different projects are some of the biggest priorities we have going forward from the OpenStack Foundation perspective.
Yeah, so there are a few product people on the line, so I imagine they'll agree with you on the user experience part. Yeah, the whole holistic experience is something that's super important when adopting a product. So just, for me, I mean, it was an amazing experience, the Austin Summit. Actually, when you discussed the Hong Kong hackathon, the upcoming Mexico hackathon, and all of these things that you guys are doing, and the community is just expanding globally in such an incredible kind of the panel's perspective on kind of the local community growth and kind of the global community growth and how they feel it's affecting the project as a whole. I think we can start with you, Mark, because I would love to hear your perspective also on Israel specifically and how you've seen it evolve over the years, being so involved, but also kind of the global community as a whole.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it's really phenomenal for me to have the opportunity just to get to know people all over the world that are, finding value in being part of the OpenStack community and contributing to it. And when you go to an OpenStack day like the one coming up in Israel in just a few days from now, it's really amazing to see, how much community building is happening just at the grassroots level with, the folks on this phone and others that are really helping to bring together those local communities they usually have a number of users speaking as well as people from the ecosystem. We've also seen a really uptick in interest from different governments all over the world. We know that a lot of different governments are running OpenStack, but a lot of them are actually starting to see that open source and OpenStack as a cloud technology can be central to kind of remaking the economy and creating jobs. And so you see increasing support from different governments all over the world to put resources behind OpenStack, which I think is a pretty awesome sign that there's something really unique going on. That it is transforming essentially every industry. Not just OpenStack, but cloud computing in general, and sort of this move to software development. Every company it now has to develop software as part of their strategic mission, and an OpenStack is right there in the mix. So it's really cool for me to be able to attend some of those events and meet the folks that are making it happen. And obviously there's a huge amount of talent in Israel that's really been contributing to OpenStack success. So I think it's a great thing to be able to witness.
That's awesome. I'm actually going to come back to the government agency part because we're actually having the chief intelligence officer, speak at our upcoming event.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool story. But I would love to hear our panel's, kind of perspective on the community growth. Mellanox, who are a big supporter of the foundation, and the Israel community. They've hosted so many events and they've been so involved. And LivePerson, who they've been co-organizers from the onset, and I'd love to hear their thoughts on so we'll start with you, Tom. What are your thoughts a little bit on the local community growth and how it's gone a little bit global, and your perspective from going to the different events and your takeaways?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a very active community. Both a lot of international companies that have a presence in Israel, and also local startups. We are happy to host, several events, meetups, and OpenStack training, and we've seen a very, very high attendance, a lot of people, a lot of interest. Of course, we're sponsoring the OpenStack events, and we see a lot of collaboration there. Just the example I just gave about the work with our partners on quality of service and pushing things to the different projects. It's a very good example. And we're looking forward to continue this collaboration, of course.
Chen, I'd love to hear you guys' perspective, kind of as more, being a community member and kind of leading the organization here in Israel, and then, having this footprint, this incredible footprint kind of in the global OpenStack community, how you feel it's evolved over the years.
So we're really proud to be one of the largest implementations in Israel, maybe even in the world. We do see a lot of growing interest over the years. Just a few days ago, friends of mine working in other companies, smaller ones, are asking a lot of questions, really asking us to share our insights. It really looks amazing. We're always happy to help. We've had a few workshops internally in our organization, and even one that I gave to a small company owned by a friend, and we're always happy to help, and we love the enthusiasm around it, and it looks really great.
Excellent. Ori, some thoughts from you. And we've been leading the community here in Israel, and kind of almost looking at it also from that perspective, and all of our work around OpenStack. What are your thoughts on how it's evolved?
Yeah, sure. So I think first OpenStack Day that we organized, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago. We had less than 60 people attending.
A handful.
Yeah, I think this year we're gonna go north of 500, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So that goes a long way in kind of saying A, how much OpenStack itself has grown, and B, how much the interest in Israel for it has grown. We're seeing a lot of vendors doing work around OpenStack, contributing code, becoming a member of the foundation, doing work on top of OpenStack. And we're seeing a lot of users, so LivePerson were kind of the trailblazer in that sense. I think when you start talking about government, organizations, the military, these kinds of like huge deployments that are already actively using OpenStack and use that for their own internal needs, that actually says that it's become mainstream. To me, I mean, like Israel is kind of, it's like two countries, right? There's like the whole startup scene where, we're kind of on par with Silicon Valley, or at least we like to think so. And then there's this like the traditional enterprise, corporate, government organizations that are usually 2-3 years behind what's going on in let's say the U.S. And seeing that happening here in Israel is a really strong testament to how much OpenStack has become ubiquitous in terms of just being the de facto standard for private cloud. Yeah, I'm really proud about of what we've achieved throughout the years. I think we've built a very healthy community. Let's just keep doing that.
Excellent. So yeah, so coming back to the government agencies, how military service in Israel is actually mandatory, and this is actually something that we think is definitely a catalyst for increasing the talent pool that we were all talking about, and lowering the barrier that you talked about of entry, and increasing the skill set pool in order to make OpenStack more accessible. So we think this is going to be a really interesting talk. It's also a revolution almost in terms of the mindset, because historically, yes, they've been on traditional kind of infrastructure, and suddenly to kind of make this move to OpenStack either means what Ori actually said, in that either it has become ubiquitous, or it's amazing to see that kind of the strides that even the more conservative organizations in Israel are taking with technology. But I'd like to just wrap it up and just quickly give a few highlights from the event. Mellanox will have a talk there talking about everything they're doing around networking, LivePerson, CICD on OpenStack, and we'll be talking about container orchestration, which just shows the kind of diversity of talks that will be at the OpenStack Day Israel. Mark, we're looking forward to having you join us. Any last thoughts from the panelists? We'll go one by one. Tom, give your closing thoughts.
No, looking forward for OpenStack in Israel.
Chen?
I don't have a lot to add. Looking forward as well. Hope to see a lot of interesting sessions this time.
Excellent. Ori?
Yeah, same here. Looking forward to seeing everyone at the event, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for OpenStack. I think it's going to be very interesting. There are a lot of topics we haven't covered, but I think are very interesting to follow. Specifically, like the interplay between OpenStack as a private cloud and AWS and Google as public clouds. The way this whole container revolution or container wars theme is gonna play out. So yeah, exciting times ahead.
Excellent. So Mark, we'll let you wrap it up and give your kind of final closing thoughts on OpenStack, the days, the community, etc.
Sure. I think for me, every single OpenStack day I've attended, and I've been lucky enough to go to quite a few of them, I've met users that I didn't know were using OpenStack before I landed and set foot in the event. Organized by everybody there. locally, and so that to me is always the true north for open source communities. Is who are the users and what are they doing and what do they want to do next. And so for me, it's all about kind of meeting new users I had never met before, and learning what they're doing, and really encouraging them to speak out and share their experiences, with the overall community. And I think that will be no different coming up at the OpenStack Day there in Israel. Thank you.
Yes, we lost Sharon again. So let me wrap it up.
So I'm looking forward
Oh, there you are. Okay.
seeing you all at the event. June 2nd, Tel Aviv Convention Center. If you haven't gotten your ticket yet, definitely. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.